Apologize to Brian and Marlene and bow your head to the floor. At my birthday party, my husband Corey yelled at me and shoved my shoulder, trying to make me sit on the floor. Marlene, my daughter-in-law, looked up as if searching for something, her face downcast. From my angle, I could see a malicious smile forming on her lips, which otherwise appeared as though she was about to cry. Would you say the same if you saw this? I presented something I had prepared in front of Corey's eyes. The time had come to reveal everything after being continuously mocked. My name is Sienna, and I turned 73 this year. Corey had stayed on as an advisor at his company even after retirement, but finally stepped down last year to enjoy his retirement. We've led a quiet, if ordinary, married life since we wed, without even arguing much. Our eldest son, Brian, got married a few years back and moved out. With our parenting duties complete and no other worries, life was good, though we're not exactly swimming in money. We've saved up a decent amount for our retirement. Living together with just Corey, there's really nothing we lack. We expected this peaceful life to continue. The change in our lives came with our eldest son and his wife moving in. Initially, they lived in a rental apartment, but they recently expressed a desire to live with us. True, Brian's workplace is closer to our home. Marlene is a housewife, so she doesn't have to worry about commuting. At first, Brian was the one who talked to me about it. Marlene has generally kept her distance from our home. It's not that we have a bad relationship, but something always felt off. Corey tells me I'm overthinking, but I can't help but feel it's women's intuition. However, this wasn't the first time the topic of living together came up. They had initially refused the idea when they first got married. Maybe back then they wanted to live independently. Now they've been married for a few years, and I have a feeling there's more to this decision to move in. I'm not particularly enthusiastic, but Corey feels differently. He's always enjoyed a bustling home and seemed a bit lonely since the kids moved out. He thinks that once our grandchildren are born, things will get even livelier. If Corey agrees, then I can't be the only one to oppose it. They decided to move in during the month when their apartment lease was up for renewal. With plans already this far along, Marlene has yet to pay us a visit. We're going to be living under the same roof, so it seems courteous to at least say hello. Marlene's ongoing absence makes me wonder if she's actually against moving in. In the end, Marlene showed up on moving day. She arrived with the movers. Let's get along from now on, okay? And when I smiled and said that, Marlene replied softly, Nice to meet you. She wouldn't look me in the eyes. I swear, there was no harassment from my side. No mother-in-law and daughter-in-law drama or anything like that. But still, her attitude. Even for someone as patient as me, it was irritating. Corey didn't seem to mind much and started showing the newlyweds to their room. We had made some repairs and adjustments to the room they'd be staying in, considering it would now be a shared living space. The room had been renovated to their specifications. Huh? Is it really this small? While straightening their shoes in the entryway, I heard Marlene's annoyed voice coming from deep within the house. Do you really intend to cram us into this tiny room? I can't breathe in here. Marlene raised her voice as if she were the victim. I quickly made my way into the house. Corey looked perplexed, scratching his head in front of a red-faced Marlene complaining about the small room. Small? This is one of the larger rooms in this house. It's even renovated exactly as you asked. What more do you want? I couldn't help but let my annoyance seep into my voice since Corey was taking heat. That's when Marlene finally looked at me. For the first time since we greeted each other, she locked eyes with me. So you're Sienna? You plan to shove us into this storage closet? I was taken aback by her harsh words. It was absurd. Brian also tugged at her sleeve, saying, Hey. But Marlene was unstoppable. She started talking about how her family's home had rooms far more spacious than this, just for storage. She stressed how the stress came from the difference in lifestyle and standards between her family and ours. She even started talking about how rich her family was and how poor we were in comparison. I never thought Marlene could have so many complaints. I thought even the tolerant Corey would get mad at this point, but he was just calmly trying to soothe Marlene. From Brian's attitude, I could tell this was a usual occurrence for them. Marlene kept complaining for about 15 minutes, but finally seemed to realize that nothing would change by doing so. She entered her room and slammed the door shut. Corey and I exchanged glances inside. So began our tumultuous life with the newlyweds. I had hoped that Marlene would eventually get used to this home. After all, as a housewife who wasn't working, she'd be spending most of her time here. I can't deny that I had some ulterior motives for starting this joint living arrangement. As I've gotten older, household chores requiring physical strength have become more challenging. Though I wish Marlene would lend a hand, she stays cooped up in her room all day and doesn't help out at all. I handle the laundry, putting it in a hamper in the laundry room and then hanging it out to dry. Once dry, I fold the laundry and leave it in front of my eldest son and daughter-in-law's room. Marlene only leaves her room during mealtimes. She devours the food I make while complaining about it. Corey doesn't seem concerned about Marlene's attitude at all. Since moving in my eldest son and his wife, utility bills and food costs have doubled. Housework has doubled too. Despite all this, they don't contribute to household expenses. I felt emotionally and financially cornered. One day, I must have looked worn out. Corey brightly remarked, "Your birthday's coming up soon." I looked at the calendar, and sure enough, there was a mark on my birthday, a tradition Corey maintains every year. "What would you like for your present this year?" he asked. I sensed Corey was trying to cheer me up. I felt like I couldn't stay down in the dumps forever. Actually, there is something I want. I told Corey I wanted a wristwatch. The one I had was broken, and when I tried to get it repaired, they told me the parts were unavailable. Even though I don't usually wear a watch, I feel uneasy without one when I go out. Corey seemed to remember saying, "Oh yeah, it was broken." "I look forward to your wristwatch," he said with a bright smile. Seeing that smile, I find myself smiling genuinely for the first time in a while. I decided to make an effort to avoid looking miserable or irritated. A few days later, I accidentally overheard Corey and Brian talking in the yard. It seemed they were planning my birthday gift, a wristwatch. I thought about leaving, but didn't want to draw attention to myself, so I stood quietly, blending into my surroundings. "Can you buy Mom's watch with this money? I'm not sure what women like, so consult with Marlene, and let's keep it under $1,000 so Mom won't feel overwhelmed." With that said, Corey handed Brian a bank envelope. Probably it has $1,000 in it. Brian checked the envelope and nodded. "Got it." I felt a bit guilty for eavesdropping, but they seemed unaware of my presence, and I left. That was quite a splurge for Corey, and I couldn't help but feel delighted. Marlene's snide comments didn't bother me that day. However, that evening, I accidentally overheard something unbelievable. That night, the wind was howling, making it hard to sleep. I couldn't fall asleep and thought about having something warm to drink. Careful not to wake Corey, I slid out of bed. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed light coming through a gap in the living room door. I heard voices talking. I tiptoed closer and saw my eldest son and his wife, Marlene, sipping beers in the living room. Not wanting to deal with them, I decided to go back to my room without my warm drink. Just then I heard Marlene say, "So, for Sienna's birthday gift." I froze and listened. "We know she won't appreciate the value of a watch, so I just got her a $10 one from some knick-knack store." Marlene chuckled. I couldn't believe my ears. I thought my son would scold her, but he joined in the laughter. "Smart thinking. We can use the extra money for a trip," my son added. I felt dizzy for a moment, surprised my son would say such a thing. And to top it off, they were mocking me, saying I wouldn't even notice it's a toy watch. Sienna's gonna cherish this toy watch. Hilarious, right? Marlene laughed so hard it sounded like she couldn't contain herself. I retreated to my room unnoticed. I felt like crying, but anger surged within me instead. Enough was enough. I vowed to make them regret their actions. You know, it's my birthday, and I was thinking of inviting my sisters and their husbands for dinner. At breakfast, I said to Marlene. This was the first time we invited my sister and her husband for a meal since we started living with the eldest son and his wife. Before we moved in together, we used to invite them for dinner, frequently. But that changed, perhaps out of consideration for the eldest son and his wife. That's fine, but I won't be helping with any of the preparations. You invited them, so you handle it. It's my birthday, and she has no intention of doing any preparations. I've never heard of the birthday person having to do the hosting, but I kept my composure. Getting upset would ruin my plan. Sure, I'll whip up something delicious, I said, feigning enthusiasm. Marlene scoffed. You're really going all out for your birthday, huh? I heard her, but pretended not to. It's all for the birthday scheme, so here I am in charge of all the preparations for my own birthday party. Cooking is a joy for me, so I'm not stressed about it. I was also looking forward to seeing my sister and her husband, Derek, who is an ex-military man. Derek's a straightforward guy who hates dishonesty. He's usually calm and kind, but as my sister often warns, you don't want to see him angry. They both get along well with Corey and are currently taking golf lessons together. Derek is the kind of guy who checked in with me when I started living with my eldest son, asking if everything was okay. I have a feeling he'll be on my side. Flipping through my collection of recipes, I decided to prepare something both my sister and her husband enjoy. I can't help but smile as I do this. Fast forward to the day of my birthday and I'm swamped. It's ironic that the birthday person should be so busy, but what can you do? Marlene is not lifting a finger, just lazing around the house. She occasionally sneaks into the kitchen to snack on something and leaves. Corey has gone to his golf classes and will bring my sister and her husband back when he returns. I hurried to get everything ready in time for the evening. As for my eldest son, he took the day off to gamble. I've always warned him to be moderate, especially since he's had a gambling issue back in college. But ever since he started dating Marlene, it seems like he's picked up his old habits again. They even go gambling together on their days off. By the evening, everything is set. Corey arrives with my sister and her husband. Derek brings me a large bouquet of flowers, instantly lifting my mood. I still love my birthday, no matter my age, especially when celebrated by those close to me. I repeatedly say, thank you, as I accept the bouquet. Marlene, seeing the large bouquet, mutters under her breath, they'll just die anyway. She meant for only me to hear it, and I quietly scold her, saying, don't be rude. Usually I let her comment slide, but not this time. She seems surprised, then clicks her tongue in annoyance. Her pretty face is spoiled by her pettiness. My sister greets me. It's been a while. Marlene immediately puts on a charming smile. My sister is so naive. She believes there are no bad people in the world and has no clue about Marlene's two-faced nature. We gather in the living room for the birthday celebration. I prepared a large table with all of my sister and her husband's favorite foods, as well as Corey's. I intentionally left out my son and Marlene's favorites. Marlene seems to notice this and whispers something to my son. Ignoring her, I start the birthday party by saying, thank you all for coming today. It always feels good to have your birthday celebrated no matter how old you get. My sister smiles and says, you never change, do you? Corey and Derek start sipping their wine. My eldest son and his wife remain sulky, silently digging into their meal. They occasionally nod or hum at our conversation, not really participating otherwise. As we near the end of dinner, my sister brings out a birthday cake from the fridge. I didn't prepare a cake myself, so this is a happy surprise. Although the number of candles is random, it reminds me of childhood birthdays I spent with my sister. We have a gift for you too. Take it as a present from all three of us, says Corey, nudging my eldest son. I catch Marlene, flashing a sly grin at that moment. My eldest son hands me a beautifully wrapped box with a ribbon. This watch you won, it cost around $1,000. Take good care of it, he says a bit arrogantly. Corey seems a bit annoyed by his tone, but keeps it in check to maintain the atmosphere. Thank you. It's a very expensive watch, I say, taking the ribbon box in both hands. May I open it? I ask Marlene, who smiles and says, of course. She rarely graces me with such smiles. I carefully untied the ribbon and unwrapped the box. Inside is a watch with a thin leather strap. I can instantly tell it's cheap. Even its secondhand wobbles. Is this the watch you picked out, Marlene? How lovely, I say, holding it up for her to see. I chose one that would suit you, Sienna. It's a lifelong item, considering the price. Marlene grins and replies, That's the last straw. How much more is she going to mock me? Without a word, I toss the watch in the trash. The room falls silent. How dare you! Apologize to Brian and Marlene. That's $1,000 watch. They picked it out for you. Corey is the first to raise his voice. He grabs my shoulder, trying to force me to kneel. Marlene feigns tears, muttering, How terrible! I can see the corners of her mouth turning up in a smile. What do you have to say now after seeing this? I handed Corey a printout. It was a webpage showing the exact same watch I had just thrown away, listed at a mere $10, tax included. The package and ribbon were identical to what we had. I know you wanted to give me a watch. Those two trampled all over that sentiment of yours. I revealed to Corey and my sibling-in-law what I had accidentally overheard. They had taken the $1,000 given to them by Corey, but a $10 watch, and planned to lie and say it was a $1,000 gift for me. They intended to use the remaining money for a vacation. In the corner of the living room were a few brochures of hot spring resorts that had been set aside while cleaning. My sibling-in-law seemed to have noticed them. You thought I wouldn't recognize the value of things, so you figured you could give me a toy watch without me knowing? You seemed pretty pleased about it. Enough with the mockery, I told my eldest son and his spouse. It was rare for me to speak up so strongly. Sienna, that's outrageous. Stop these weird accusations. Are you trying to shame me in front of everyone? You're the one who's always lying. Marlene started accusing me of constantly lying, saying that I've been telling the neighbors she doesn't do any housework, even though she does all of it, or claiming I cooked today's meal. I was speechless. Right, Brian? Marlene turned to Brian for agreement after her rant. Yeah, that's right, Brian chimed in, probably not wanting to offend his aunt and uncle. Then Derek quietly picked up the watch from the trash can. This is a toy. It's not a $1,000 watch. With a controlled fury, he muttered this and threw the watch at the feet of my eldest son and his wife. The sound of breaking plastic filled the air. Corey, who seemed to come back to his senses after Derek's words, loosened the grip he had on my shoulder. My eldest son and his wife looked pale as ghosts. You've been making fools of us, haven't you? You could see Brian trembling at Corey's words. He knew all too well that when Corey, who rarely gets angry, does get angry, there's no controlling him. Marlene was clueless. Look, it's a waste to give expensive gifts to someone who doesn't appreciate their value. We could make better use of that money by traveling, she brazenly declared. The next moment, Corey's angry shout, "Get out!" echoed through the living room. He promptly ushered the couple out and dragged them all the way to the front door. Once outside, he locked the door behind them. From the other side of the door, the voice of my eldest son and his wife pleading to be let back in was audible. But neither Corey nor my younger sister and her husband had any intention of letting them in. Corey apologized to me, saying, "I'm sorry, didn't realize all of this sooner." Hearing his sincere apology made me feel like this was the best birthday ever. After that, Corey never allowed our eldest son and his wife back into the family home. The cohabitation was over. Their belongings were sent to Marlene's parents' house, and any further contact was strictly ignored. My eldest son and his wife were suddenly homeless, taking refuge at Marlene's family home. However, there was no place for them there, as Marlene's sibling and their spouse were already living with the parents. Soon enough, they were kicked out and had to rent a small apartment to start their new life. Rumors were they had no savings, possibly spent on gambling, and Marlene's brother had to cover their apartment deposit. It seemed Marlene had already been cut off financially from her own family, with a strict warning that no more help would come. Marlene, once a housewife, was now working part-time to support their new life. As for me, life had become easier since we stopped living with them. I finally had time for myself. Corey also started to treat me better than before. Despite the difficulties, I felt like our marital bond had strengthened, and perhaps this was the happiest we've ever been.